right, so Todd and I were just talking about something that happened yesterday. And I'm not just talking about the video that we did, talking about live scope and some of Josh Jones's 14 pounders and all that stuff, but just talking about how a lake like OH Ivy is just pumping out these giant bass. And for the most part, I would say 99.9999% of them are caught using forward facing sonar. Not just live scope, but everybody's brands these days. But yesterday there was a 17-pound bass.
Hey,
What?
after our video,
I know. Right
we
after our
made the
video.
video
Yeah.
first, and
Yeah.
then it came out there. So I just want to preface that the timing on that was incredible.
It was incredible. There was a 17-pound bass caught, and I'm just going to tell you guys that is an absolutely massive fish. You don't hear of very many fish these days that are even in the realm of that size of fish. And I want to talk a little bit about that today. Todd, what do you think about it?
I don't know. It was from what and I don't do any research on this, as y'all well know, if y'all follow Andrew Upshaw and his Bass Open Fantasy. I kind of take stuff for what it is, but they said it's the 7th largest fish in Texas ever to be caught.
Yeah. I want to say it's the 7th largest. It was caught by Brody Davis of Oklahoma. He's a friend of Josh Jones, and they were down there at the same time. I did a little bit of the reading on the backstory of it. Brody was out there with his son, his 9-year-old son, which is I'm just going to tell you guys, that's awesome. That is one of the positives of forward-facing sonar is being able to spend it out there, spend some time with your children or your grandchildren, whoever it may be, and they can kind of relate to it. Is it a video game? No, it's not a video game. Is it similar to it? And can they relate to it? Absolutely. So since Brody was able to spend that with his 9-year-old son, absolutely hats off to you, man. Congratulations on just an epic fish. I want to say that all other, you said it was the 8th largest, right? Or 7th? 7th.
7.
So there are 6 fish ahead of this fish, and all of them are from Lake Fork.
Are they all?
Every one of them from Lake Fork. At least per this is, and this isn't made in science. That was from a Facebook post of a friend of mine. Said that all of the other ones ahead of that particular fish are all from Lake Fork. Just goes to show you how unbelievably fantastic at one point or another Lake Fork was or is or whatever. And there's a reason that lake sees just an enormous amount of boats. And I will say this: Bass Pro Tour today is going on, and I'm gonna tell you right now, will there be a 10-pounder? Probably. There's been one almost every day. The sheer amount of big fish that are there right now is ridiculous.
How many guys are fishing?
Only 10. But I still think there'll be a 10-pounder.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Is that so this isn't like a normal tournament where like on a Bass Champs or something, they might have 250, 300 boats in one of our event in a team event on Rayburn, and maybe a 10-pounder gets caught out of 350 boats. They were having 10-pounders getting caught with
20 boats, 40 boats.
20 boats, right? I mean, that's incredible when a lake when you got a 20-40% chance of going, or not a 20 or 40% chance, but like
a 1 in 20 chance, or 1 in 40
1 in 20 chance, a 1 in 40 chance of catching a 10. When guys are like they fished 4,000 days in their lifetime trying to catch one. I mean, it's pretty incredible lake.
I want to bring this up. This is a topic of conversation right now. Is forward-facing sonar too good? And I relate this, and it's not relatable, but it is to a certain level, because it's two different, completely different sections. But the umbrella rig, we fished through its introduction and where it is today, and then we had forward-facing sonar when it came out and where it is today. Now, granted, when the umbrella rig came out, it did change the way a lot of people fish. It was that elephant in the room that just made everything uncomfortable. If you didn't have an umbrella rig on your deck, if you didn't spend some time using it, you were in trouble. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, but I really think in certain levels there are some comparisons there. There are some comparisons that we can make. I remember certain tournaments that guys that you wouldn't typically see in the top 10. We talked about it a little bit off air yesterday. There's some guys that you didn't typically see in top 10s that were getting top 10s because they literally would pick up that thing and they would throw it all day until they figured out exactly how they could catch some fish on it, and they would ride it through the entire event, and that's how they caught them. And nothing against those guys. Congratulations for having the determination to go figure it out and do it all day long every day. My point to this
Figure
is
it out.
there was figuring out. It wasn't just you could cast it down the bank and throw it over your shoulder and catch.
But you could.
At one point you could, but it was
Okay.
all time of year though. But at that time we didn't realize that because it was so new. But the thing is those guys, what they did is they went out there a month straight and fished it every day, or 2 months or whatever, and they were like, oh, okay, this is better when it's cloudy or better when it's windy. Like whatever their determination was.
Their determination was, I'm going to go throw it. Listen,
And if I run into them, I'm going to catch them. Yeah.
Listen, I truly believe this, Andrew. Like, I saw it go on with co-anglers and they didn't care. They caught them better on certain days. That didn't determine whether or not they were going to throw it. They threw it no matter what. And when I see a guy, because I heard a lot of guys go, you should have seen what happened when the Cinco came out. Okay.
The Cinco's still killing it, by the way.
They're still killing it. Or flipping or something. I'm like, yeah, but you can't randomly just flip at a bush. Like, I would see guys going, like pros, like FLW pros. They throw it here down the bank, then they throw it out here on nothing. And it was just blind casting in front of them, no matter what. And I was going, okay, like, I'm sorry. I didn't really consider that. I just saw what it was. And now this is tournament guys, right?
Yeah.
I want to bring this up.
Yeah.
This is the way I looked at it, because this was like letting people go out there with live bait. When I say that is, there's reasons where they put restrictions on tournaments, because tournaments are supposed to be skill-based deals where there's people would say there's luck involved, and we all say, yeah, there's a little bit of luck with the skill, but it's a skill-based event for money.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what it was. And we were like, hey, all these things, you start taking a lot of the skill out of it. And that's where, as a true tournament guy, we don't like. We want the skill involved. We want the hard work. We want all the things that go into, like, when I get beat, I want to get beat by a guy who's more skilled than I am, that figured it out, that was smarter than me, that put in more work. Like, I want all that to happen, not the guy that goes out there blindly casting around the same bay. So that was always my view on it for tournaments. So we got to take just the fishing aspect out of it.
Yeah. And when you compare it to something like live scope, something that, or forward facing sonar for that for that matter, how that has changed the dynamic of tournament fishing is just unbelievable. And once again, I mean, I see posts daily, almost every single day, of guys saying, hey, I need to buy one of these live scopes, or I need to buy one of these active targets, or Humminbird Lives. Anybody have one for sale? My next purchase is this. I need to get this, because if I don't have it, I'm getting left behind. And the reality is, you are right now, and certain times of the year, it is going to be unbeatable. I mean, and certain situations, certain things, and that's where I compare it to umbrella rigs, because now with umbrella rigs, what we've learned is that it's way more situational. It depends on the time of year and how the fish are set up, so on and so forth. But now they've combined the two. Now you've got forward-facing sonar and umbrella rigs. So herein lies, in my opinion, the problem, or a big problem, is not only are you targeting either single fish or a small group of fish, you're throwing them a bait ball, basically. You can see the bait ball go past their head, and then they'll go up there and crash it. Now, are these guys snagging fish? No. I mean, these fish are coming up there and eating their bait. Like, there's no, maybe like 1 out of 100 they're actually snagging. that they see, and they're not intentionally snagging it. The fish is still going to run into it. They're not just jerking their bait into the fish more than likely. Um,
I hope not.
I hope not. I mean, that would be really hard. I can't even snag a stump when I'm intentionally trying to snag a
Yeah, no
stump.
doubt.
But like if I non-intentionally try to snag one, I can do it every single time. But my point to this is like there is a line, especially tournament fishing. Now, granted, most big tournaments you can't use umbrella rigs. Bass Elites and Pro Circuits and all these. You can't use an umbrella rig, thankfully. But when it comes to record size fish, you kind of see both sides of the argument here. And I'm seeing a bunch of different comments on here. People are saying, congratulations, Brody. And I'm one of those guys that I'm like, dude, you did it. I didn't like that's awesome. You caught a 17 pounder. I'll probably will never in my life see a 17 pounder ever. And so congrats to you for catching it. But I saw a deal the other day that one of the records for the meanmouth prior to this past week getting broken.
Killed.
Yeah.
But killed.
It got destroyed. I mean, it caught an 11 pounder. I shared it on my Facebook. But they wouldn't give him the world record for meanmouth because he caught an umbrella rig.
Really?
Yes, that's 100% a fact. They would not honor his world record because he caught it on an umbrella rig.
What was their argument?
Because they don't count umbrella rigs as a way of catching. It was IGFA, whoever it was.
Really?
Yeah. So they've already determined that a world record cannot be caught on an umbrella rig and count. Just can't. Now, it can be a lake record, a state record, whatever. But when it comes to world record, it will not count on umbrella rig. And I think that's a very interesting point because, I mean, it just goes to show you how effective that particular bait setup is. Now, are we going to start seeing a shift on a lot of these forward-facing sonar guys like Josh Jones and some of them going to single swim baits? And I think you have actually started seeing it because they realize, hey, if I do, in fact, hook a world record, and you fish a lake like OHIV every single day, you've got a shot at it. Maybe, I don't know, I doubt it, but like, is there a 25 pounder sitting in OHIV? I doubt it. But is there some teeners? 100%, obviously. Yeah. But you start seeing them go to single swim baits. You start seeing them throwing jerk baits. You start seeing them change things up a little bit because they're worried about the world record stuff. But my point to all this is, how far are we willing to go on forward-facing sonar? And I want to be very clear here. I use it all the time. I actually would feel kind of weird if I didn't have it on my boat at this point because I've gotten so used to it. But is there always going to be an asterisk at the end saying like, he caught this lake record on an umbrella rig or an umbrella rig using live scope or active target or mega live or whatever? If he caught it using that, is there going to be an asterisk? And I honestly don't know the right answer to that. Because I do see the effectiveness of it. I see how unbelievably possible, and I'm saying possible, I'm not saying easy, because it's not easy doing what these guys are doing. What Josh Jones has done is absolutely incredible. Now, has Josh Jones spent every day there for the last month? Sure. I'm assuming that's what I was told, is that he's been there every day and fishing daylight to dark. I even think he made a post not too long ago talking about how hard he has physically worked just to catch what he has caught, because it's not one of those things where you're going to do it every single day. Now, he might catch an unbelievable amount of 7 to 8 pounders, something like that, but catching a 14 pounder is not something you're going to do every day. But my point to this is where do we draw the line with forward-facing sonar and technology to where it is for tournament fishing something that is over the top? I mean, look, for instance, you have the Bass Pro Tour going on at Lake Fork right now. You've got almost the entire field using some variation of forward-facing sonar. If you take that forward-facing sonar away, are the
Who'd win?
same 10 guys in that
Hmm.
top 10, and which one of those would win? I don't know if
Well, well,
you know.
I what I'll say about that is and I don't know. So no one's really. This hasn't ever been brought up, but I don't know. Jacob Wheeler's was leading, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he made it to the final round because he won his first two.
Right. So I
Yeah.
mean, so I'll put it to you this way: I think Jacob Wheeler would probably hands down still be in the top 10 with or
Yeah.
without it.
100%.
I think there's certain guys. When you bring up the umbrella rig, people don't know that Brian Thrift will throw that thing.
And is one of the best out there throwing that thing.
Right, but you've probably never in your life actually physically seen him throw it.
Yeah.
But the guy can fish with or without it. And
Yep.
that's kind of what we're saying is that like there's going to be guys growing up with like they can do both. I think if you grow up live scoping, if you got good at live scoping and that's what you do,
Yeah.
I think you're in for a world of hurt if they ever took that away from you.
Oh,
If
I
you
agree.
figured out how to live scope after being a good fisherman, I think you're okay. But if you had to do it the other way around, I think you're in. I think you're in for a. I think you're going to spend a lot of years and a lot of time looking at something that without that is going to make fishing very hard for you. Because I saw a post and I made a comment about that, or I saw a comment and someone asked me about it. It's you have your head down all day long. You're just looking at a screen.
Yeah.
And I've kind of made a joke about it. I'm like, it was like when side imaging came out, you
Yeah.
heard some guys talk about they'd be doing it and almost like hit somebody because they're just watching the side imaging for hours on end, right? And this thing, you can like look down a live scope and end up 100 yards away and end up, right next to somebody. Or, what I'm saying is you get carried away looking at that. And when you take that away, what happens is we used everything around us,
Oh yeah.
right? It literally just happened to us the other day, and me and Brent were fishing the TXTT. We're going along fishing shallow, and we look up and we see like something. I mean, and it's cold out there, so nothing should be busting the water. But we saw some things every once in a while, just something barely just make something on. It was glass, right? So you could just barely see something like make something. Not it wasn't a bass or it wasn't whatever. Anyways, we saw it close enough, like 3 in a row within about a minute. We threw over there and caught like 5 in a row in like 2.5 foot of water on a Carolina rig, right? Like that was something we physically like. That's the
Yeah.
stuff that
Yeah.
what I'm saying is we use that. We use birds. We use things on the water to figure out the lay of the land. Like we knew we understood what stumps like grew beside creek channels. We understood what hardwoods grew there, like cypress trees, like old ones. We knew we could look at the bank and see changes in the bank, right? We could drive down lakes and go, there's a rock change, there's this, there's okay. And we would use all that. I don't think I think that is going to get left behind for sure. Like using all
Yeah.
that stuff that
Yeah.
we used to learn all the like to the sneaky stuff. What we consider sneaky that we didn't think people used, and now it's just like head down and oblivious to the world around you,
Yeah, put my hoodie on and not is everything else around doesn't exist.
which
And
is fine.
what it is fine, but from a viewer standpoint, like as tournament guys, we have YouTube channels. We've been on FLW's show, we've been on Bass's stuff. We've been on a lot of different things, a lot of different networks, and the overwhelming comment that I get from 99.9% of people who comment on my stuff when it comes to forward facing sonar is they get so insanely bored of watching people just stare at their unit the whole time and fish for a fish that they're seeing on forward facing sonar. They get bored. And I do too, to a certain level, but I also use it as a learning, you know, standpoint too. I mean, I'll watch people and I'm like, okay, I know he's looking at a fish, and I'm trying to envision what this fish is doing on his forward facing sonar, why he's twitching it the way he's twitching it, so on and so forth. But at the same time, from a viewer standpoint, that guy that doesn't go out there and fish every day and do all that stuff, I mean, I can see how that's super duper boring.
Well,
Like,
live scope's cool to watch when you're seeing it, but imagine coming out with like the coolest movie in the world, right? And
and
you're about to,
you're watching somebody else watch it. Yeah,
and that's what you're doing is watching someone else
yeah.
watch a really cool thing. I don't want to watch. I want to watch the movie. I don't want to watch the guy watching the movie.
You know,
And
and I do think, I will say this, I do think if these live formats or something like that could ever incorporate a way that you could see the sonar the whole time that they're fishing for
oh,
fish,
ooh,
it would be
ooh,
super
like the
sneaky good.
poker. Like
Yeah,
so there was a deal with poker. When poker, uh, Texas Hold'em, when
oh
all
yeah,
that stuff made its deal, and because Bass went through this too. I remember Zona talking about it. That he said, if we ever do this Bass track deal and tell people it's going to ruin fishing, and he was like, dude, I think it was Zona said, man, I think he was against it,
hmm,
right? He didn't want to show people like that drama. He said it would. Maybe I'm wrong. Zona, if it's Zona, sorry, Zona. It might not have been you, but
yeah.
I
Zona,
thought,
I doubt you watch this, but in case you did,
man, Zona watches. Well, Zona probably doesn't watch those stuff. He just keeps up with stuff when I freaking post and when I jack with him about his teeth. But like what I'll say is that like that was thought of, and I would probably be in that category too. Like, hey, this is going to take all the drama away from the weigh-in and stuff, and it did nothing of the sort. There was a deal in Texas Hold'em when they were like, "What do you mean you're going to show them the cards?"
oh yeah,
Everyone's cards. Well, once they started doing that, and then you got to see how everyone thought and played, it totally opened up watching people play cards,
correct.
right?
And
Man, I had not.
and if we don't go to a point where we're showing what the
Oh, I don't
fisherman's
want to go
looking
there.
at, then I think it is extremely boring.
That's a really
Because
good
that,
one.
I think it's extremely fascinating to sit there and watch the fish interact with the bait, or how they interact with cover, or
I
interact.
don't even.
I tell you one thing that I've seen is how fish interact with your boat. I
I don't
mean,
like this conversation where it's
it's
going.
good, isn't it? You like
No,
it?
no, I don't really want you because I don't want that. I don't want anyone doing this. I honestly.
Well, more
Ooh,
so than anything, when it comes to forward facing sonar, should there be an asterisk? Should there not? Post a comment
ooh.
below. What do you think the future of forward facing sonar is, and why it should either be here or leave or whatever? So, what do y'all think? What do you think that this asterisk is going to do? What do you think this forward facing sonar, what is the future to this? And how do you think it's going to set up?
Well, like, so you said about the asterisk dealer and going back to the Josh Jones thing, and what's weird is I'm not really sure. We had a buddy back. You always have those group of friends. We had this group of friends in college, and I had this one guy. I knew him a little bit, but he used to go out to the lake, and he didn't really fish tournaments. He fished a couple. He always fished different than us. And
Hmm.
what I mean by different than us is like we used to catch a lot of big fish too. He would go like after big fish more throughout the day. I kind of like, I'd rather catch a whole bunch of 5 pounders. And if I caught a 10, great. And sometimes I'd go after bigger ones, but like he liked to go after them more, not and didn't mind not catching that many fish. Um, as a tournament guy, I was just always trying to learn
Yeah.
like fishing in general. So a 2 pounder and a 10 pounder to me, yes, they're way different, but I'm always just trying to learn things. But he went after actually catching big ones. And I think that's what Josh Jones is doing. And I read a lot, like, so if you get on social media on that whole deal, that whole thing goes in a lot of different directions because of Josh Jones even being in the middle of it, kind of talking about like putting a post out there. There was 17 pounder. And I think a lot of people thought that he caught it and that the guy was in his, like, it was a whole big ordeal. Right.
Yeah.
Um, but what I'll mean to that is that like, when you look at all that, he's going out there and so many guys were asking like, well, let's see what he can do on another lake. Well, let's see what he can do on tour. Well, there's two things to that. One, I don't have to ask those questions. I already
No.
know the answers to those.
Yeah.
Um, you can't go to every lake and do that. You can't go be that successful. Like we talked about that the other day, like certain lakes, set up right, certain times of the year, all this stuff. That's not a knock on him. Like I can go catch 10 pounders every day on Toledo when they were spawning and when it was good. That doesn't mean I never go to this other lake over here and catch 10 pounder ever sight fishing, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't do it. It doesn't set up that way. So he's putting himself in a position to go do this. And I don't think ever once has he said, hey, I can go beat all these, I'm better than all these guys doing it on fork. And so I'll give it, I don't think he has. Now I know I've heard that he's made comments and stuff, but you know, I don't, I'll be honest, I don't really follow him. So I don't know all the things of how he goes about everything. I just know he goes out there and it seems like he's trying to catch big ones. There's no reason to sit on OH Ivy and keep doing what he's doing without trying to, I'm not even saying prove something, do something, do whatever his goal is.
Yeah,
Whatever,
I mean, yeah, he ultimately has a goal.
he has a
There's no
goal.
doubt about it. I mean, his
It's
goal
not
is,
fish, it's not fishing the tour. It's
and
not.
he doesn't have to, and that's what's
No.
interesting. You know, I mean, yeah, I've seen those same comments saying, oh well, he should be going and fishing tournaments, like he couldn't. But that's not what he's trying to do.
No.
Literally, all he's trying to do is go try. Honestly, if I had to take a big guess on what he's trying to do, he's trying to break the Texas state record.
And we had a guy down here that fished out of a kayak. Man, he was a jerk. Man, this guy. We all ran into this guy, and he was so arrogant and so whatever. He used to come up to us on his kayak. Not that he was in a kayak. He used to sight fish. He used to put these little freaking cane things out, and we all just, he'd roll up on you and make, while you're sight fishing, make comments. Man, I'll catch that fish. Just all, but he was always like, yeah, I'm out here to break the record. I've seen, 10, 15 pounders a day. It was just a lot. He was a lot for me because I'm like, dude, don't come up to me. But, and I'm not comparing the two. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
What I'm saying is that's what that guy wanted to go do. That was his goal. I kind of like, if I was maybe 23 years old, I don't know how old Josh, but if I was 23 and had zero responsibility, I don't know if he has responsibilities. I'm just saying, this is my life, guys. When I'm saying about me, if I was 23 and maybe had no responsibilities and could go do that, I would do that. That doesn't really interest me sitting out on OH Ivy. I've got a wife, kids, I got a lot of other things. And going to OH Ivy for 3 or 4 days interests me. Going there for 2 weeks, doing what he's doing, honestly has zero, like I have zero interest to do what he's doing, much like he probably has zero interest in doing what I'm doing, or you're doing, or any of those other guys commenting, fishing their team tournaments on Saturdays, going, yeah, while you have off limits, I'm out here every day fishing. Like that's what he wants to do. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, we all have our own passions and goals and what makes us happy. And I know guys that go out there and their number one thing is they only want to catch a big one. They could care less if they catch 50 a day. They want to catch one giant or catch nothing. Like they could care less. And I get that same vibe from him. Does he catch more fish? Yeah, sure. I mean, he's really good with forward-facing sonar. He's going to catch a bunch of fish. But his ultimate goal, I mean, there's no bones about it. His ultimate goal is to catch a giant bass. And I still, like, if I had to sit down with him in a conversation, I'd be willing to bet he wants to catch a Texas state record. I don't believe the 25-pounder exists in Texas. That's just my opinion.
You think we could get him on?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it'd be cool.
Let's ask him.
Oh, we could message him and see what's up. So, Josh, if you're watching this, which I doubt you do, but if you do, message us.
If y'all know Josh, I'm kind of interested in to see what he
his backstory a little bit, what he wants
backstory,
to do.
And like if he has a goal, if he's like, or if he's just, man, I'd kind of like to hear. I don't know. I have zero clue.
Yeah,
because like I said, like what it is interesting to me because I always found it like. I bring that up. I literally brought that up for that my buddy. I was like, I didn't have a lot of interest in. I like catching big ones. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. We talked about like, I couldn't tell you how many 10 pounders I caught because it was never one of those things where I know a lot of guys are like, I've caught 32 10-pounders. But okay. I've caught quite a few. I've only weighed in the 12.6 I caught on Toledo Bend that one time. The only reason I weighed it in, I caught it and I was like, man, that's a big one. And I didn't have a scale. And I'm like, it was, and there was someone close. And I'm like, I'll just put it in the live well just for a second. I idled over there. It was Jimmy Strickland. And I said, hey, Jim, you got a scale? Like, look at this big giant I caught. And he was like, you need to go turn that in. I'm like, for what? I'm like, oh, that they have a big fish deal. I'm like, man, I'm practicing for an event. I don't have all these hours to go kill, like turning this fish in.
Yeah.
I'm going to let it go. And he's like, no, man, you got to go turn that in. That thing's big. Well, it was a 12.6. I just thought it might have been a 10-pounder. And luckily it was a tagged one too. It was one that they had already.
Yeah, that story is very interesting.
Which was a crazy story.
Yeah.
The fact that I caught this fish a year later after Stephen Johnson, a buddy of
30 miles away from where he
30 miles away and 2 pounds heavier. He caught it at 10.6. I caught it 12.6. Yeah. But my point is I would have just, I don't know, have probably taken a picture back then.
Yeah.
I guess I might have. I don't know. And then let it go. And so I don't pay attention to that stuff. But I just wonder what if he's got a goal. He's got a goal. I guarantee he's too motivated to do something. I would like, so if any of y'all know him, see if he'd want to come do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It'd be cool to kind of get his backstory on it. But to kind of go back real fast, I mean, and just real quick, when we're getting ready to end this deal, but I really want to say congratulations to Brody Davis. Like, you catch a 17-pounder, I don't care. The only way that I would say it would be legit is he caught it in a cast net. You know what I'm saying? Like, you caught it on a rod and reel. You had to physically cast it out there and you had to reel it in and you had to land it. And I think his 9-year-old son actually netted it for him, which is even cooler. I mean, as a dad and having a kid that's 7, I can go ahead and tell you that would be a memory that my son will have for the rest of his life. I will have for the rest of my life. I remember, as an example, my dad shot a really big buck, his biggest buck he'd ever shot. And I was with him that day. And I would remember every single detail of that day. And it was a quick hunt. Like, we literally sat down, and when we sat down, the deer walked out. Like, it wasn't a long hunt. But that's something that you can share with your children forever. But I will say this, and to close, do I think we are hitting a breaking point with forward-facing sonar? My personal opinion, I do think we're getting to we're getting close to a point to where it is getting too much. Do I think we're there yet? No, because forward-facing sonar still takes a certain amount of skill to catch them at a certain level. Because if it was so easy, the 40 guys that fished at the Bass Pro Tour at Lake Fork 2 days ago or 3 days ago, I'll say 2 days ago, so it was their knockout round. There was guys who zeroed that day. There was guys who weighed in 1 fish or 2 fish, and that's all they caught. And then there was a handful of guys that did catch them.
I'll tell you this, Andrew, about it. I'll bring it back to sight fishing or about anything. Like, if you go sight fishing or flipping or frogging and it's on, like, right? Like, when it's sight fishing time and you go sight fishing, for you, it's easy, correct?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
If same thing, frogging, like, if the frog bite's on, it's like, this is easy for me. I can do this in my sleep. And I'm sure there's guys out there too that they have their little techniques that when it's on and everyone else is struggling, it's on. I always said this, and make no bones about this. And I'm going to say this, and I don't care what professional fisherman gets mad at me. Professional fishermen are still just fishermen that are really good at catching fish, right? And they're doing, it was kind of like what I said. I had a buddy's back that could went after big ones, but I just kind of wanted to learn all of fish, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because in my head was wrapped around tournaments and doing a 2-pounder was going to be just as good as a 10-pounder at times, right?
Yeah.
So I needed to know how to catch 2-pounders and 10-pounders all at the same time. When I found out, when people were talked about sight fishing, they're like, do you think you're better than some of those guys on tour? I'm like, to be honest, like, hands down, it's not even close. Yeah. And I'll tell you why. And I'll bring this up. Yes, all day long, probably better than most of them. And the reason is this: I live in a part of the country that I can sight fish a long time.
Yeah.
Guys in Florida are better sight fishermen than most people because their season lasts so long. Texas and where we are, the further south you go, our seasons last longer for certain reasons. A lot of it's because the Florida strain too. They don't, like, Northerners kind of all go at the same time, the push.
Yeah.
So you have very limited amounts of time to do it. So I was able to do it every single day. Now, when you fish on tour, the guys on, like, say, the elite guys, right? They just got done with, they went to Toho, Harris Chain. Now they're going to the Classic.
Yep.
Right. And then after the Classic, they're going to have another tournament. When I was learning how to sight fish, I was Josh Jones. I was on the lake 5 days a week, 6 days a week, sight fishing. I'd sight fish for 2-pounders and I'd sight fish for a bunch of 10s because there was a difference. And I would sight fish for everything all day. And I would go after the hardest fish I could possibly try to catch. Not the easiest ones.
No.
At some point in time, I was like, I would sit on 2-pounders with a 10-pounder right over there that I'd catch on first cast. I'd sit on 2-pounders for 3 hours, learning how to catch that 2-pounder because I knew it would make a difference. I got really good at sight fishing because of that. You're right. Everyone has live scope. And I'm making your point that just because you have it doesn't make you good. Guys that if you lived on OH Ivy for like 2 years and live scoped like Josh Jones is doing, I'm not saying he lives there, but if you did live there and went on tour, you would be better than probably 95% of the guys on tour.
Yep.
Even though they're professional fishermen and I don't care how many classics any of them won ever.
Yep.
You would be a better live scope fisherman than those guys. Now, the only asterisk I'd put on that is, as good as I am sight fishing on, say, one certain lake, you had to get good on like, I consider a good sight fisherman a John Cox, and I would say I've done it on multiple lakes now, right? All over the country. You have to get good at sight fishing on multiple lakes in my opinion, to be a good sight fisherman, right? Because it changes. Live scope is the same thing. The way they act at OH Ivy is not the way they probably act on a whole bunch of other lakes.
Correct. Yeah.
That being said, so much. You're going to take this everything and start applying it. The way you learn, the quickness which you'll learn these other lakes is going to be extremely fast compared to guys live scoping for a day or something in practice. They don't get to catch them that many times. Like, they're just looking for, there's a big difference from a guy just doing it all the time. And
this is the perfect little segment to it. When it comes to sight fishing, let's just say sight fishing in comparison to live scope. Sight fishing on those perfect days, everybody's going to see them. They're all going to be able to get up there, and they're going to randomly catch a handful of them. They're going to be in the way, but they're going to catch some of them.
Yeah.
But on the very perfect condition days, they're going to catch them. And then if you look at days when live scope or forward-facing sonar is most effective, it's on, and guys just go out, everybody goes out there and crushes them because they are just set up right that day. They got the perfect weather conditions, everything's set up right. No wind, like you can scroll around, you can see them, everything works. But when you get those foul weather days, those days that are super cold, your guides are freezing up, the wind's blowing 20 miles an hour, that's where experience comes in, and these guys are going to do better. Guys like Josh Jones, I can promise you could throw Josh Jones out there on the worst day out there. Freezing cold, windy, and he's still going to catch some fish on it, and probably catch more than the average person. Absolutely catch more than the average person.
Way more.
And it's because he has spent his time out there day in and day out learning the how the fish act and how they set up, and he can look at fish and say, I'm not going to catch that fish fast, or it might take me 30 minutes to catch that fish. I might have to keep chasing it down to get it to bite, whatever he does. And I don't know exactly what he does, and and that's his game, and that's what he does. I'm the kind of guy that I'm very versatile. I like to do a lot of different things. I fish the conditions, I do all these kind of things, and maybe that's going to be my downfall, and I'm not going to be a Josh Jones, and that's perfectly fine. But what I want to really say, and I hope that anybody that's listening that has any, question about this guy has gone out there and learned how to do this. It's not just as easy as he turned on his screen and started catching 8-pounders. That is not how it works. And it's the exact same when it comes to sight fishing. Just because you have eyeballs and you can see in the water doesn't mean that you're going to be able to catch every fish that you run across. It takes skill, it takes time, on the water, just like when Todd was sight fishing when he was younger. Literally did it every single day of the spring that he could get his boat on the water. And that's the reason Todd got good at it. So, with that, guys, I really hope y'all enjoyed this show. It's kind of a little bit of a controversial topic, but at the same time, it's something that we need to talk about as an industry of where we draw the line on technology. Where do we draw the line on records and what counts, what doesn't count? Obviously, IGFA's already cracked down on umbrella rig restrictions. Will there be a live scope restriction? I don't know.
Yeah, hey, I want to bring I like your asterisk thing. I want to talk more about that. Let's talk more about that next time. Like
Yeah,
I want to go into this asterisk deal. I
yeah,
want to
because
see
I
what people
I
have
do.
to
Yeah,
say.
I really think. Yeah, so comment below asterisk. Do you think there's gonna be an asterisk on forward facing sonar here soon? There already is, like I said, on umbrella rigs. So I mean, how many asterisks are we willing to throw out? Are we going to start throwing asterisks on sight fishing? Or are we going to start throwing it on whatever else, deep cranking? I mean, where do we draw the line on all this stuff? Because there's going to have to be a line. It
We
just
got to
can't be.
we got to bring this up next time.
Yeah, we do. Guys, I hope y'all enjoyed the show. Make sure y'all go check out Todd Castledine Fishing on YouTube. We're going to be doing a lot of this content, bringing you some pretty cool shows and talking about some things that we don't traditionally talk about. We'll see you later, Todd.
Yep.